All right, welcome. My name is Roderick Ripley. I'm one of the account managers here at Workamajig. And today I will be talking about the advanced features and workflows of deliverables. So hopefully you're ready to take some knowledge here and get some high level in-depth detail into deliverables. So I'd like to first, of course, start off with when we're talking about the advanced features of deliverables, what I am going to be presenting to you today is not something that you have to implement. There may be pieces that you might pull from this. There may be other workflows you come up with, which I'd love to hear about, by the way. But other than that, I just want to make sure that you get to see, what's out there, what's available. But by no means do you have to use every feature that I show today to be successful in Workamajig. Everyone has their own little niches, their own little ways of doing things, and deliverables is one of those very, very versatile features that you can set up in various ways. So with that said, I hope everybody can hear me. So if anybody wants to type in the chat, I want to make sure I'm not just speaking into the ether here. And so if you do type into the chat, I will look at that occasionally through the webinar if you have questions. Thank you very much for responding there. So if you do have questions, along the way, I will peek over there once I have a moment to kind of catch my breath and take a look at what's going on. But we'll definitely save more of the Q&A for at the end of the session. But if we're good to go, let's go ahead and dive on in here. So again, since we're talking about advanced deliverables, I will assume that everybody here knows kind of the basics, meaning you know how to go to a project, you know how to, from that project, start a new deliverable. It's kind of detached from the schedule, if you will, and you're able to just kind of send an internal review, a client review, and you know all those kind of ins and outs. So I'm going to assume we're good with that and not really go into detail there. But where we start getting into some of the advanced functions is saying, okay, I know how to add a deliverable to my projects. I know how to send it for review, but maybe I want to fine tune that process a little bit. Maybe I want to adjust the review or approval process. Because our defaults. Let me go ahead and just hop over into our system setup here real quick. If I go to our defaults and I go to system setup under transaction preferences, let's open that up. You say show advanced options. And under one of the settings over here, we have there it is, deliverables right in the center. So we can see by default, this system is wanting to create 2 steps, an internal review and a client review. So you can set up these, independently, because this is going to be the default workflow. But what if I want a 3rd step in here? Or, I don't like the naming of internal review. I want to call it something else. So if you want to go beyond what we see here, then that's when we start getting into what we call deliverable types. So what we can do is we can kind of scroll down in these transaction preferences for deliverables, and there's some options here, like use types with deliverables. You'd want to enable this. There are other options we'll go through today as well, like statuses, to-dos, those kind of things. And you can even see there's like required tasks. So if you want to kind of implement it as part of the schedule, there's more advanced functionality, and we'll kind of come back to some of those. But first, let's talk about this use types with deliverables. So what is a type? Well, a type is going to be under our global items or global lists here in system setup. And the second from the top, in my view, because I have everything enabled, is deliverable types. So I open this up and I've already preset some. So I have 3 deliverable types in my system. I have, a single page deliverable for review, a video, and a brochure. Now, I'm not the most creative person in the world, so this is all I've come up with, but I could imagine what you might have. You might have, like a commercial 30-second spot, a commercial 15-second spot. You might have different types of deliverable types established to kind of set them apart from others. So not only can you kind of name these deliverable types, more specific to what they are, but you have the ability to then customize their approval process. So for example, if I edit the approval process for my single page here, okay, there's just a 1-step approval process simply called single page approval. So instead of it saying internal review, they're going to see, oh, you're going to get an email that says single page approval. And I can set up approvers and notifiers, have 1 step. It's very simple. But if I back out of this and let me go to my multi-page brochure down here, if I edit this process, oh, look at that, I have 3 steps. I have one just for like, people that do layout. And if you notice, in my approver section, I don't have anybody's actual names. I have services or key people, if you will. And you can see, oh, I'm going to send this to the art director and the graphic design, because those are the ones that do the layout. I got a copy approval step. Okay, that goes to the account manager, art director, and the copywriter. Make sure that the copy is good. And then of course the last step is a client approver. So I send it to the primary contact. Now, if you're not familiar with how we are able to utilize key people and services in these workflows now, I'm going to go ahead and edit this approval process. So I'm going to edit the client step and scroll down, and here I can see, oh, I have approvers, and I have an account manager, and then a primary contact. So if I click the plus sign here to add more approvers, I can search not just my staff, my people, but I can say, hey, let's build this based off of key people. Now, key people is pulling from the project header. So like whoever's the account manager on that project, we'll pull them in. Whoever is the primary contact, pull them in. So you can have, it be more of a dynamic option, because the account manager and primary contact could change project to project, but you want to have them included on that process or step. Now you can also say, okay, there's key people, I get that, but let's go to services. So these are all the services I have in my system. And if I have these people in the team of my project with this service assigned to them, then I can actually pull them in based on of what they're assigned in the team. So I could say, hey, pull everybody that has the copywriting service as their service, or everybody that does graphic design. So you can actually add them as approvers into each of your steps. Now you have some of this functionality elsewhere, but I'm just going to focus on deliverables here today. So this is where a lot of that this type of workflow is kind of actually derived from. So if you see this in other parts of the system, well, it kind of started here, if you will. But again, this is just my examples. Feel free to come in here, kind of make your own, have your own step names, whatever you wanted to do. Within each step as well, you have the ability to say, hey, send it to everyone at once. Everyone must review. So hopefully we're familiar kind of with these send options if we've been using deliverables in the basic way, at least. So you still have the ability to kind of customize those. Now, if you do say send to people in order, by the way, you can then adjust or drag and drop the approval order. So you do have that functionality here as well. One thing I like to suggest is whenever you do a round, I always prefer to pause each step. If you're not familiar with that, what happens is if let's say somebody at 2 in the morning just happened to wake up and couldn't fall asleep, so they decided to go and review their deliverable at 2 in the morning and approve it. Well, if they're the last one to approve it, well, that's going to send it to the next step at 2 in the morning. So I always like to kind of like pause the step, just so that way the account manager can come in the next day and say, oh, okay, it's been approved. Let me go just double check. Okay, let me go ahead and just submit it for the next step. So it just depends on what kind of level of automation you want, or especially if you're going to go to the client. Prior to going to the client, I would definitely want to pause that. That's just my preference. So anyway, just some food for thought in there. But you have a lot of abilities. You can have instructions that are unique to each step. Or again, if it's just that single one, let me go back to my top one here, that single page. It's just simple, one step. In my instructions, I just say, please review. But you could put a whole big blurb in there of different things. Now, and this is all just at a default level. So I haven't even submitted anything. I don't even have a file yet. This is just saying, what is my workflow whenever we do these types of deliverables? Now, where it gets a little bit more advanced are these custom fields, but I'm going to talk about that later. For now, just think about it as a progression here. There's the default workflow that, again, I'm assuming where everyone's familiar with. The next step is deliverable types, where you can create a custom approval process per type, and have that all set up and ready to go. And so once you have a deliverable type, what then happens is I'm going to jump back to one of my projects here. And I'm going to go and open up the deliverable board of this project, which I'll get to in a little bit more detail. But know that when you have your deliverables here on the left, so for example, if you go into your system settings of your project, you have the ability to say, hey, show show deliverables. There's this option to show deliverables on the right. So I would kind of show you like a little dashboard of the deliverables. Again, that's kind of the more typical way or basic way of using it. But when you uncheck that and you just have deliverables here under the project details, what happens is when you click on deliverables here, it actually opens up the deliverable board. Now in this project, I don't have any deliverables created yet. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a new one. And we'll say, let's create a new deliverable. And notice I have this type field. So when I drop down this type field, I'm going to pick, which deliverable type I want to use. And again, that's going to override my workflow. I'm going to use the workflow of the deliverable type. I'm going to disregard how the team is set up, except for maybe, how people have services in there. So let's just say, oh, we're going to do a brochure. So I'll use the type of brochure. A couple of fields change based on that. I do have require tasks enabled, so I do have to pick one. So I'll just say, okay, we're on the layout. So I'm just going to put in a deliverable using a type. This type also has custom fields. We'll just say, okay, it's on the first phase, whatever that happens to be in my custom fields, and I'll save it. Oh, of course, I forgot to give it a name. We'll just call this our new awesome brochure. Let's go with that. Save that. So there you have a new deliverable, ready to create the first round, ready to upload the file and go. So it's just, but know that it's going to be using, again, the workflow based off of that deliverable type. So when I do create that new round, it'll pull in the workflow automatically for me. So it's kind of a nice way to say, hey, you can have your creatives, you can have other people create the deliverables on their own. Just picking the right deliverable type will pull in the designated workflow. So lots of kind of cool things that you can kind of do with deliverable types. Again, I think it's a time saver once you get it set up. Plus you can, customize it to a very, very well degree there. All right, I'm going to catch my breath here for a moment, take a drink. I'm going to look at some Q&A questions here. Let's see, somebody just responded, they don't have that option in their global lists. Yeah, so if you don't see deliverable types or transaction preferences and those things in your system settings, and you probably don't have permissions to do a lot of that level of system setup changes. So you may want to speak with one of your administrators to help you out there on that one. Let's see, and then Angela here had a question. So you're creating a single workflow for deliverable review that has to apply to every project that has a deliverable type, correct? I'm not sure if I fully understand the question, but yeah, you're creating a deliverable workflow that is outside of the project. You're thinking of, well, who's going to be involved in that workflow? Will it be, a copywriter? Will it be an account manager? Will it be the contact of the project? So yeah, you're able to create these workflows that are either dynamic based off of the key people and services. But yeah, you can also just pick people as well and just say, all right, regardless of who's on the team of the project, a video review always needs to go to this person for review, even though they're not really part of the project. So that's where you get a lot of, again, customability. I don't know why you use that word a lot, though. I don't think it's a real word, but you get to customize that to a good degree. So that way, it's a very unique process. So hopefully those are good answers for your questions there. All right. Oh, looks like another one just came in. Can you copy over deliverables from one project to another? Yes. Yeah, there are ways to copy projects. You can even have like these shells of these deliverables built into a project template, for example. So I won't get too far into that, but knowing how I just created a deliverable here, and this new deliverable has not had a round sent for review yet. Think of it like this: on a template, you could have this on your template, and it's just ready to go. It's already there. So when you create new projects, you could just have these be templatized. And again, once you create the new round, that's when all the magic happens. Not when I added the deliverable, but once I create the round, because that round button is what's going to then pull based on the setup of that deliverable type. Okay, some good stuff there. So let's move on for a moment now. So I just kind of gone through just the basics, adding in another deliverable, using a deliverable type on this kind of standalone project that we have here. Now, of course, this deliverable board may be new for some of you. So this is now part of the just part of the live system. There's no longer a beta to enable for this. So when you do open up the deliverables board in this way, keep in mind I've kind of customized this a little bit already, but you have the ability to view deliverables in several ways. So I can view deliverables based on a kind of like a card view. So if you're used to that kind of card view from the Today Creatives or different assignment pages, now we have that ability with deliverables as well. And we can kind of move them through the project, either through tasks. So this project just happens to have 2 tasks, and I can move it through that schedule and say, okay, we're done with the layout. Let's send it to the printer. So I can have it be task-based. We also say, okay, well, this task, the schedule doesn't really match our workflow of deliverables. In that case, then we can create what we call deliverable statuses. So this way you can move them through different statuses in this board that are independent of your tasks. So going back to our system setup here real quick, back under transaction preferences and deliverables and scroll down, you can see, we enable deliverable types, but there's also now use statuses with deliverables. So once that is enabled, you'll see that under the global list as well. And now you'll have deliverable status here. And again, this is a list of statuses that you can customize that are specific to your deliverable workflow. Again, this allows you to kind of keep things a little bit independent and say, okay, our schedules are for kind of our creative workflow, but our deliverables, we want to kind of keep a different status on them, in addition to just, are we sending it for review, or, where are we at with it? So that deliverable status allows you to kind of create some, different workflows, through this deliverable board. Now that's the card view. If you're kind of used to like these kind of list or grid views, we have that ability as well. And notice that the status shows up here as well, and that's where the color coding of the status can be visible. So you can kind of move it through here. You can see what task it's on, what status it's in, all kinds of good stuff. So if you're managing your deliverables at a high level, you can see all of this kind of at a glance, which is nice. Okay. We'll get more into kind of the deliverable board once I have one of my other example projects here, but just wanted to add a new deliverable real quick, kind of show you how that is working. I'm going to back out here real quick. So knowing that this deliverable board is kind of a way to kind of manage your deliverables, within your projects. If you're looking for a way to, kind of jump to each one quickly, what you can actually do is you can add this deliverables column to your projects page, or even your campaigns page. If you use campaigns with deliverables and projects with deliverables, you can kind of roll it up at that level too. But at this level, I can say, hey, let me adjust my system settings of the projects page. So if you have now not everyone's going to have access to system settings, because I know we already had a question about accessing those rights. So if you can't access things in system setup, you probably don't have this right either. So again, maybe talk to your administrators after this webinar today and see if they can help you out and get some of these options set up. All right, so from the projects page under more and system settings, I can then go ahead and adjust and edit the columns all the way here at the bottom in my settings. And in my columns, I have the ability to add deliverables. So if I add deliverables, and another column to add is maybe open to-dos. So you can add those 2 columns as well. So that also kind of plays into some of our features today. So with those 2 columns added into my projects page, what that allows me to do is at a glance, I can see, well, how many deliverables are on my project, but I can also just click on it to drill in and open up the deliverable board right there. So it's kind of a really neat, quick way to just kind of jump right in and see, well, where are all my deliverables at? So that way you don't have to open the project, then go to deliverables, then manage it. You can just see at a high level, hey, we have all these projects with deliverables. I just need to manage the deliverable side of this, and it's right there. Now, at this point, we can start doing is saying, well, again, what do we need? What is the focus? So this is where you may want to speak with your account managers a little bit and let them know what you're trying to do or accomplish, or, based off of today's call, what maybe you gleaned from this that you would like to apply to your process. But having said that, just keep in mind that once you start getting into this deliverables board, and especially this kind of list view, this is where it gets very detailed. Because this is where you can kind of say, well, what is important for us to see? Do I need to see, hey, what round is everything on? I can see I don't have anything really submitted. We only have this one. Whatever we need to see at a glance, we can do that. Plus, you are able to edit quickly in the grid and just say, oh, hey, let's change this to this task, or let's change this to, this status. That way, you can just kind of quickly update things and move things around. Plus, I don't know if you saw the announcement, but we're also working on some real-time updates. And so let's say somebody else has this deliverable board open at the same time, and you make a change here, it'll actually update their page instantly or within a few seconds. Hopefully that's fast enough. But I know that's something that we're working on to make sure that, hey, if something gets changed in one place, change it everywhere for everybody to see. So that is something that we have in development right now that will be available soon, which is pretty cool. I've tested it myself. But this is one of those areas where, hey, if we're living in the deliverables board a lot, we want to make sure that things are getting updated everywhere, or else you're kind of overriding each other's changes. So okay, I'm just trying to think what else I can get to in the deliverables board. There's so much there that it kind of loses things a little bit. One thing to point out, there is not a way to view all deliverables across the system in the deliverables board. We've deemed that to just be too much information and potentially slow things down or break the screen. So you do have the ability, however, to say, okay, let me see all the deliverables for a particular client. So I can just say, hey, just show me my client, and here's all the deliverables going on for that client. So you do have some of those options in that respect of a little bit higher level of what you want to see. You can group everything by a campaign. So if you have multiple projects under one campaign, you can say, hey, show me all the deliverables for under that one campaign. But this is really where the nice part about having these shortcuts here from the projects page is whenever you click it, it's going to open up the deliverable board specifically to that project. So you don't have to mess with the filters of the deliverables board, because you're just kind of going down your list and jumping into that project's deliverables, and this screen is automatically set to show you that. So that's I think the beauty part of having the deliverables column added here is a good time saver. So you're not in that deliverables board changing the filters and options all the time. Okay, so that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg here. So where does this kind of play out with our creatives? That's always a big question here. So if I jump over to my Today Creatives page, and I go under my, to show you my options, I'm going to go to More, I'm going to go to my display options. We have added some options here, such as the, open deliverables only, open to-dos only. We have some other options that we've added here based on, how people may use the system. So if you're saying open deliverables only, okay, there may be other tasks that I'm assigned to, but I'm not going to be working on those until a deliverable is tagged to that task. So that's where if you require a task on deliverables, that kind of controls the visibility to your creatives of what they should be working on. So in this case, they could say, oh, I see I have this task to work on. There's an open deliverable. So I can kind of jump to the assignment page. I have the ability to see deliverables kind of in a list of the deliverables that are, tagged with this task. I could most certainly then say, okay, let me open it up. Let me open up the concept. I'm sorry, that's the task it's on. Let me click on the brochure review. And then I can see, well, okay, what's been reviewed? Well, we don't even have a round yet. So we have nothing to review. So, not the greatest example to show right off the bat. Let me just go ahead and say I have a brochure. Let's go ahead and just add a round here. There's that three-step process what we were talking about earlier in our deliverable types. So I shouldn't have to do anything. If we're following like the deliverable type structure, there's nothing I should really need to worry about in terms of the setup. All I should be doing is just adding my file. And do we have an existing file? No, we don't. So let me add a new file. Give me one moment here. I'm going to just add a quick file. Just add my version 1 file. And there it is. And I'm just going to say, send this for review. So if I'm the creative, I might just do that and just say, hey, let me start a new round. Let me add my file, send it for review. It's been sent out for review. Everybody's now doing their thing on that part. Okay, well, I'll come back later. Or maybe at this point, that was all I needed to do. Is maybe my task was, hey, add the file. Okay, well, let me send it over to the next task. So if you do have a linear task line in your schedule, you can say, okay, move it to the concept. That deliverable has been moved to the next task in the schedule. And you kind of just double check and refresh your work, and you move on to the next task that has a deliverable. So in this case, I may never be really completing tasks, marking them done, but I could most certainly be adding my time while I'm doing that. So I could say, hey, let me add some time here while I work on seeing, what's been said about this deliverable. So you have all kinds of ways you can kind of work with your creatives, in terms of visibility of when should their task card show. Is it based off of the schedule, or is it based off of when a deliverable is on their schedule? So to kind of go into a little bit further, there's kind of, again, these are advanced concepts here. So if I go back to my projects page, I have this example where everything is just duration of project. And so if you haven't seen this, you can now, I'll give you an example here. So I have in this schedule, I've got a series of tasks. It's kind of a workflow, top down. But what I've done is I've removed the predecessors, the scheduling aspect of it. And I'm just saying, hey, these are the tasks that we're going to be kind of running through. I'm allocating time per person to each of these tasks. And this project just runs for, a month or two, for example. So we may be running one or multiple deliverables through this one project, but we just have the schedule set up just to kind of accommodate everything, knowing that the schedule is just there as kind of a placeholder as deliverables move through the schedule. So that what that means is if we have it set up like this, then these tasks will only appear once a deliverable has been assigned to one of those tasks. So you can see here, this is that duration of project one. There's 4 deliverables on this first task that I'm a part of. Okay, well, maybe I should hop on there and see, oh yeah, do we have pages 2 through 5 ready? Looks like we don't. So maybe somebody needs to add those pages to each deliverable to move them through the schedule. But I can also see, later on in that same schedule, okay, we have, page 1 has been put through to the internal review task. Okay, so while we're in there, I could be adding my time. I could be, doing more work on this deliverable. I could, of course, open it up and see, hey, what comments have people been saying in this latest round? Oh, in this latest round, people have been saying, oh, they got to, move this glass over. They got to do a couple different things. Okay, so you have all kinds of functionality again in terms of, how we're going to, see and interact, with those deliverables. Now, if we don't need to resource things at this level of detail with the Today creatives, this is where we do have the ability to say, what, instead of using again, this is a kind of an advanced concept. So if we're not, all on board with, the Today creatives page, and we're not, and again, we don't need to resource per task, per person, per hour, that kind of level of detail. If we're not needing that level of detail, then what we can do is we could actually just kind of live in the deliverables board. So one last thing I'm going to show you here, back in the transaction preferences under our deliverables, scrolling down to those options again, there will be one down here called enter time on deliverables. So if you enable this, what that does then is your users are able to go to, they could either kind of live in this project page, and they could set this page up to say, hey, only show me projects that I'm on the team of, for example. So if I'm on the team of that one, okay, then show me that project, because that's the one I should probably be working on. And that's where you could kind of go, hey, there's those 5 deliverables. Let me open the board. Okay, there's that page 1 we were just talking about a moment ago. I'm going to go and click on that. And notice there's a time tab here. So as long as this deliverable is for a task in the schedule, so a PM could kind of manage that part of it. But then your users can just live in the deliverable board and go, oh, hey, let me add some time to this. Your default service populates. Keep that in mind, not the service that you're assigned in the schedule. So this is where we're kind of breaking the mold a little bit and saying instead of living in the Today creatives, we can go and live in the to-do board. Not to-do board, the deliverable board, and say, okay, I'm going to spend about 2 hours on this, and I'll save that. And of course, it's going to tag it to the task. Again, do I need to know about that? Not really. So if you're managing the deliverables at this level, we're just either utilizing the task as our status, or we're just using the status as the status. Again, depending on how you integrate your workflows there. But as long as it's for a task, you can enter time directly through the deliverable in that respect. But just keep in mind, you're kind of breaking the assignment portion of the system with the Today creatives. So some care about that. So that's where you create those more detailed schedules. If you don't necessarily care about matching everything to, per task, per person and all that, Well, then this is a great way to do it. It keeps it simple. Just adds time to your default service right onto a deliverable, and off you go. Now, what you can also do is, if we're going to that level of detail, well, I could also, for example, put my name in here and say, okay, show me the tasks. Show me the deliverables that I'm reviewing. So it'll look through a couple of these fields here, and I can see, hey, I'm reviewing this. All right, cool. So show me everything I'm reviewing, and those are the ones I'll focus on. So you can kind of self-manage in this view a little bit, just based on what you're being currently assigned to work on. Okay, so that's a lot to take in, I'm sure. And like I said, I'm just trying to give you kind of ideas and concepts of how we can utilize the system. Doesn't mean you have to do all these features. I just have this system set up to show everything. But you might narrow it down and just say, you know what, deliverable types, that's perfect. That's all we need. Others may say, you know what, I need this deliverable board. I need everyone to kind of live in here. I need to create custom fields for each status, or each deliverable type that it gets adjusted independently of different deliverables. So there's a lot you can do in this board than just kind of what we're just kind of showing here for the moment. Okay, I'm going to catch my breath again, and I see there's a lot of questions that have come in, so hang on a second here. Let's see. Giovanni asked, how do required deliverables appear on team member assignment board? Okay, I think we just touched on that, so hopefully we're good on that one, Giovanni. But if your name is kind of in the approval step, you can search for it here. If that deliverable is on your task that you're assigned, that task would appear. And if we're using these options such as only show me tasks where there's an open deliverable, well, then as soon as the deliverable is moved off this task, well, the task disappears for me. Once a deliverable is put back on that task, sure, I could add time to that task again. And this is also a great way if we're utilizing the tasks in this way. So if I kind of jump into that schedule here, because I always hear this, we want to kind of go back and forth in the schedule. So one way to go back and forth in the schedule is to, tag that deliverable to the task at hand. So you can say, hey, take this deliverable, let's assign it to a specific task. Oh, this will probably this is one of my other examples. I like the duration of project example better. So if we want to kind of move things back and forth, again, just tag that deliverable back to the copy task. So you can imagine, okay, we moved it to design. The designer found something that needs to go back to copy. So you just kind of, reassign that deliverable to which task you want it to be on. And based on who's assigned to that particular task will then appear on their Today Creatives. So there's a lot of neat ways. I'm more partial to utilizing the Today Creative page myself and just keeping the schedule kind of, that duration of project example that I have here. If that's where you're going to be like deliverable heavy, this kind of is the best of both worlds, because you can kind of move things around. You can still assign people, give some, general allocation of time. You can still budget for it. So that's kind of my preference. But I know I have others that they live and breathe in that deliverable board. So they modify, the heck out of that. And they just use the tasks as basically a status. So they don't really manage the project. They just use the task names as the status of where that deliverable is at. So a couple different ways of working that. All right, got more questions here in the chat as well. Let me open this up. Oh, can you please show what the conversations look like with deliverables? Yeah. So when we're using these deliverables, let me hop back in here. I know that conversations are going to be everywhere. So there are conversations at the task level. I'm sure we're all familiar with that. But if that conversation is specific to a deliverable, well, we want that conversation to move with that deliverable. We don't want it to be task specific. We want it to be deliverable specific. So when you do have the deliverable open, yeah, you have these additional tabs up here. We talked about the review round. We talked about entering time. There is the to-dos, conversations. And yes, you can have a conversation at this level, just say, hey, what has been happening with such and such, or whatever you need to address or document here regarding this deliverable, you can most certainly do that. It'll function just the same as any project or task deliverable. Just keep in mind that this conversation is only visible in the deliverable or the project. So it doesn't code it to the task. So kind of keep that in mind. But yeah, the functionality of the conversations, again, I open a new conversation, works just the same. Whoever's on the team of the project, whoever has included in conversations, all of that jazz gets, pulled into here as well. All right, hopefully that helps answer that conversation question for you. And then continuing on with that question, Aaron, you also said, I have a project with up to 200 articles, deliverables, and I'm wondering if this option would be good for that project. We currently save content on comms and Trello. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, definitely if you're utilizing 200 plus, deliverables per project, that's exactly what this whole, deliverable board is for. That way you're able to manage, a greater volume of work with creating less projects and less task management. Again, but I'm assuming, you're okay with breaking the resource management piece a little bit, because we're not assigning things at that minute of a task level. But again, all roads lead to Rome, so it's all good. Now, if I jump back into this deliverable board, for example, here. So if, yeah, you could imagine you have 200 deliverables on this one. So you're going to want to have some kind of, process thought out management. Are we going to use tasks? Are we going to use the statuses? What's going to kind of be the control for that? And then of course, yeah, if you have conversations, there's also right in this deliverable board, there's a conversation column. So you can jump right to the conversations of that particular deliverable. So you don't have to go too far if you're living in the deliverable board for that information. Now, when it comes to like looking at Trello, those kind of things, I mean, you do have kind of like your card view here. Again, you can manage it by tasks or status, however you want to kind of use your workflow in this respect. But when I hear the words Trello, I'm thinking more of the open to-dos. And so if you have like an open to-do on this particular deliverable, that's where I get into like this kind of to-do process. And to-dos in relation to deliverables is when we are reviewing our rounds. Let's get into that round we have created. Let's view our comments here. So when I'm hearing Trello, what I'm thinking of is, hey, I put in this note here. Hey, there's a comment. Let's move this to the right. Notice that when I have there's an option use to-dos with deliverables. When I have that enabled, you're going to see this fix this option appear on all comments. So that's when you're able to say, oh, hey, you know what would be great if I could take this markup, this comment, and I could assign that to someone to fix. So I could say, yeah, let's fix this. The first time you do this on a round, it will ask you, okay, well, should we add this as a to-do on the current task? That's just use the existing task. Or am I going to create a new task and assign different people? So we can just kind of forego that and just say, you know what, because we're requiring tasks, just put it on the task that it's currently on. Whoever's assigned that task will see it. So we can just simply save that, that comment as a to-do. And now you can see it from here, it's in progress. But if I were to back out to being back in my my today creative board, I just called the today creative board. Anyway, we can also see now on my task card, there's an open to do. So you can see it shows a deliverable, because I'm kind of holding on to that, I'm responsible for it. But as the to-dos come in, okay, I may click into here, look at people's to-do comments and say, oh, okay, they have a comment here. Their comment says, move it to the right. Well, let me view the markup. And I can kind of drill in and open up right to where they're talking about. So this is a pretty cool feature if we're utilizing it this way. Where we get, I don't want to get too sidetracked here, but like we have the deliverable board, we also have a to-do board. And of course, I don't have it open here. I'll have to adjust my settings. Hang on one second. I thought I had everything ready to go. And apparently I don't. Okay. I think I'll have to play around with some settings. So normally there would be also an option to open up the to-do board here, right from your task card. Unfortunately, I forgot I did not have that available. Let me just double check. I apologize. I thought I had it ready to go. I did not have that one ready to go. My bad. So normally there'd be like to-dos as an option here, and that would actually open up the to-do board. What I'm going to do real quick is just copy my project number. And under projects, for example, you see the deliverable board. I don't recommend going this way just because, again, now you have to kind of start from scratch and choose your filters. And that was why I was hoping to show you the to-do board for my task card, because I wouldn't have to go this route either for the to-do board. But when you do have the to-do board going, you are able to say, hey, show me the to-dos on this particular project. And here I then have my to-dos that are kind of ready to go. I don't think I apologize. I'm on a different system here that doesn't have that all set up. Let me just check something here real quick. Yeah, that would be why I did not have my to-dos set up on this particular one, and I apologize. Let me just add some to-do statuses here real quick. So we have a new to-do in progress, and what do I say, fixed. So that is probably why we did not see what I expected to see. I have too many test accounts, so I apologize. Let's refresh that real quick. There we go. Okay. So real quick, what I did there, because I know I moved really fast. If I go back to my system setup, and we want to utilize this level of to-do integration, because again, to-dos are an extension of deliverables as well. We want to go to our system setup under transaction preferences, and it's actually under projects. We want to scroll down here and say, hey, use statuses with to-dos. Now, as soon as you enable that, you do have to set up those to-do statuses. So I just did that real quickly, and those are going to be then under the global lists, under to-dos status at the bottom, and I just created some generic statuses, new, in progress, fixed. But again, this is where if you're trying to replace something like Trello, this may come into be handy, because this is what you're going to kind of establish as your your grid that you might move things through. Okay, hopefully you're all on track, and I really apologize that I did not have that ready to go beforehand. But what was good is you got to see the setup involved to get it functioning. All right, let me hop back over to my Today Creatives. Again, you got that little folder icon. You can click on your task card here because, hey, I have an open to-do. Let me just jump right to the to-do board. And then, oh, great. Now I have it in this, set of statuses. So I can kind of move it through and say, okay, this is new. Well, let me put it in the in progress, because now I'm going to start working on that. I'm going to open that to-do, view the markup, takes me to the deliverable, all kinds of cool stuff. So, again, this is a little bit different than the deliverable board, because we might be replacing the to-dos with something like Trello if you're using that kind of extension. This way, it's all integrated all in Workamajig. It's just a different board that you work with. And the difference here, of course, is once I put it into the fixed column, it actually would mark that to-do done. So now you can see on my task card, okay, I no longer have an open to-do because I completed it. So that might mean, okay, I enter my time. Maybe I'll jump in here to the deliverables and say, hey, move this to the next task. Go and assign it to me, and then just move it to the next task. So that way that task would then disappear from my Today Creative. I just happen to be assigned the next task. So then it's showing me the next task with that same deliverable on it. So lots of, I know, different workflows to kind of go through here. That's why I was saying earlier, we don't need to enable all of these features. We just need to enable whatever fits your mold or your workflow that you're looking for. So Aaron, hopefully that helped out a little bit with those 200 deliverable projects, which is great. That's the whole point of it. But again, now you have that extension of the to-dos that you can have on top of that as well. Move on to here. We got Kim has a question. Is it possible to turn on this feature for a single project rather than all projects for testing purposes while we determine if the new deliverable feature will work for us? Kim, unfortunately, it's a kind of an all or nothing type of setup. There are some ways to kind of tweak things to say, okay, this security group can't use they can't view deliverables, they can't view to-dos. So there are some security rights to kind of hold things back from certain groups, but I think you're just going to cause more headache, and especially if you try to go back and make it visible again, that might be a little challenging. If you do have like a test instance with us, I would suggest trying it there. Again, talk to your account manager if you have any questions on using deliverables in this way. If there's more need that you have there, we'll definitely try to help accommodate that, but definitely talk with your account manager. So, all right, moving on. We got Julie. Can you explain how the to-do would work on the deliverable? Yeah, so if I apologize if I kind of ran through that a little bit quick there. So going back to the to-dos really tie in to the comments. So the comments that are made on the deliverable, let me get back into that deliverable. So the comments that are made, within each deliverable review, oh, yeah, you can see here it's got fixed because I completed that to-do. So the whole point of the to-do is how they integrate is really these comments, saying, okay, when somebody adds a comment, we want to fix it. That turns it into a to-do that triggers back into the Today Creatives page. And, or if we're using the to-do board separately, we can still see to-dos that have been assigned to my tasks. So all kinds of different ways you can utilize to-dos there, but really it's the point of the to-dos with deliverables is stemming from your comments, and then of course any to-dos that are added into the reviews, they will list under here of here's our open to-dos, here's our closed to-dos overall for this particular deliverable. So it does kind of keep them all in one place relating to that deliverable. Okay, hopefully that helps to answer that. Again, I know there's a lot to take in here, so doing my best to try to explain this. Let's see, Aaron, you had another question. Yes, for the writers, we have buckets of time that span across the month and they manage their own time. There are other deliverables where we have to track exact hours, but those could be managed differently in the main project. Correct, yeah. So even if you have all of these features enabled, you can still manage things differently, and that's how I have my projects are set up actually. So if some other ideas I like to throw out there when we're talking about deliverables with our schedules is, I know I focused mainly on this duration of project one, where its schedule is just saying, hey, just move the deliverables back and forth as needed. Or again, if you had 200 deliverables, starting at concept, well, they're all going to be moving through different stages, and so that's where that this kind of workflow is great if you have a lot of deliverables, or you just want to just move it through the schedule back and forth. But yeah, you can most certainly do more of a traditional and say, hey, we're going to have a very simple schedule. We're going to, just move the one or multiple deliverables through this, kind of workflow. And that way we do have time allocated, to each particular task. That task is assigned to a person. We still have that full advantage, but we just have a more basic schedule. I do have clients though where they need to track time to an even more detailed level, saying, okay, we're going to have 3 rounds of internal review, and we need to budget and track all of that separately. Okay, so I have another example here where it is very detailed. I have 3 rounds of internal review, 3 rounds of client review, all pre-built, ready to go. That we're going to just move that deliverable through there. And again, if you need to track it at this level of detail, well, this is the way to set it up. So you can still put the task through the schedule, but we're really telling our creatives, hey, work through the Today Creative page. Don't go to the deliverable board. Look through the Today Creative, because that's really going to tie into what we're expecting. And again, you can do a mixture. Some projects can work one way, some projects another, but that is a conversation to kind of, let your team know. So hopefully that helps you out on that one. Let's see. Moving down, Julie's got another question. Is there an easy way to gather comments on a to-do in one place for a creative to make all changes? I'm not sure. I know there isn't a way currently to say, hey, let's, let me open this up again. So if you have, where there's a lot of comments, I've heard this before. Unfortunately, there's not a way to say, hey, just fix all of them. So there's like 30 comments and you go, hey, I don't want to have to click on fix this, fix this, fix this, for each one. Unfortunately, there is not a way currently to just say fix all. I've heard that before, but I think it's there's too many what ifs that we've thought about when trying to implement something like that. But we'd love to hear your feedback on that. So if you are looking to do something specific with kind of moving, these comments around. But currently, yes, you'd have to go on each one and say, fix this, click on the next one, fix this. The nice thing is that, remember how that screen popped up with, I had to choose my task. That only appears once. So if I'm going through the rest of them, it's real quick. I just click fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it. And it just goes real quick. It's only that first one that I have to, just designate and kind of confirm which task I'm putting them to. Okay, hopefully that helps you out there. Oh, you said it was already explained, but good. We got one more here, and then I got some more in the Q&A. Let's see. Aaron says, that was just commenting earlier when you were sharing. Oh, gotcha. So appreciate the, just commenting. Love to hear the feedback y'all have here. I got one more panel here of our QA page and see if there's anything new in here. Let's see. Giovanni asked again, how do you require deliverables appear on team member assignments board? So I think that's a good question. Let me go back here to the Today Creatives. So I don't think we spend enough time sometimes in our focusing on the Today Creatives and how to set this board up or this page up. So for example, if you notice, all my task cards are expanded. So that way I can see the details of, hey, there's an open deliverable. Hey, I have this much time remaining. Oh, I'm over budget. By default, if you're new to Workamajig, for example, this page is not auto expanded. So if I save that, I kind of show you this real quick. Sometimes this is what our default view looks like. We try to be very minimal and make sure the system's intuitive for our new users. But when you start getting into things like advanced deliverables, well, we need to see more than that. So that's where I would say in your system settings and your display options, here in your Today Creative, make sure to say auto expand the tasks. That way, when you have that set, you'll get more detail right up front. You won't have to kind of click around or expand each one individually. It'll just be already there. But as you can imagine, if you have a lot of tasks, well, that makes this list even bigger. So there's kind of a happy medium sometimes. But I like to have them expanded. That way I can see, hey, how many deliverables do I have here? And again, remember, in these display options of your Today Creative, I can say, only show me tasks where there is a deliverable. Again, if that's your workflow, is saying, I just will work on tasks that appear here based on a deliverable being on that. There are different workflows that we can establish. Notice you could do open to-dos only. So if your workflow is just saying, hey, I'm just going to fix comments that people have, well, I'm just going to focus on open to-dos only. Oh, and here's that task where, 2 comments were turned into, to-dos. So these are the 2 comments I need to review and fix. So there's different ways you can set this up based on, well, are you just fixing things or are you managing deliverables and kind of interacting? So lots of neat ways you can establish how to set up and use this system. I could say, just show me everything. And I'm just going to kind of scan through. My list got bigger, but now I got to find the ones where there's an open to do or a deliverable. There we go. There's my deliverables and open to dos down here. So, all right. Getting close to our end here. Let's see, you got 2 more questions so far. Kim asked, can you show again how a deliverable moves through tasks? Yes. I apologize if I didn't spend enough time on that early on. So when you do establish, let's go back to our transaction preferences here real quick in deliverables. So there's this option of require tasks on deliverables. Again, I would highly recommend you check this if you want your workflow to involve the schedule. This way, you have to put a task on that deliverable. There is no way around it. And that it kind of ensures 2 things: that it triggers your tasks to have a deliverable on them, which triggers the Today Creative if you're using it that way. Plus, if you are going to enter time on deliverables, if you're going to go that route and let people, kind of override the today creative and just put time to the deliverable, then you have to put the deliverable to a task in order for that to work. So if you do enter time on deliverables, again, I would highly recommend checking required task on deliverables. So knowing that we can, tag a deliverable to every task, what that means is that when we're in our projects, our schedule could be kind of our workflow for our deliverables, our statuses, if you will. So that means whenever we enter a deliverable on that particular project, that deliverable can be tagged to a task. Now, again, it would be required. So like if I were creating a new deliverable, for example, notice that task is required. So I could say, hey, every deliverable for this project will start at concept. And that's where it will begin. Whoever's assigned that task can see it today or today creative. And then there's two ways to kind of move it from there. So yeah, at a high level here in the deliverable board, I could just drop down the task column if I'm in the grid view, and I could say, hey, just put this on the copy task, put it on design, wherever it's at in the schedule, that's where I'm going to tag it. You do have the kind of this card view, and you can just say, hey, let me move it through the statuses. I don't want to, because again, I don't want it to change what task it's on, but hey, this is in progress now, and that can be independent of the task it's on concept. So you can just kind of drag things, through here and say, hey, move it to copy, move it to design. And that will just update, which task it's assigned to. And again, today creatives would change who would see it based on those tasks. So knowing that we can kind of change it, in that way, at a higher level, at a creative level, what you can do is you can say, okay, on this particular task, I have my deliverable. I have the ability of saying, okay, I'm on the client review task. It's currently on the client review. I can just move it to the next task in the schedule. So that just means, hey, if I'm just doing a linear motion, I'm done with my portion of what we're supposed to do at this point. I'm just going to move it to the next task. Whoever's assigned the next task would see the deliverable on their today creative, and then they would do their thing. So you can just kind of, as a creative, you can kind of just keep pushing it down the line. If it needs to go back, for example, I can click on, that blue wording of creative review and say, oh, you know what, this needs to go back to copy. They got to fix something. So I can just, send it back to copy. And again, based on my settings here, that may or may not make my card disappear. But that's how you can kind of work with that. So you got two ways to kind of manage at a high level, or as long as your creatives know what they're doing, they can manage it through their card view down here. All right, I hope that helped you out there, Kim. Let's see, we got one more question, unless anybody else has anything else to add. Let's see, Giovanni, you got, could you or support team email the link for this? Oh, of course, yeah, we'll send, well, we don't necessarily send the link out directly of these recordings, but what you are able to do is you can go to our support site, support.workamajig.com, and we have a blue link right there on our homepage for the webinars. And as soon as this gets rendered and beautified for presentation, it will be added to our 2022 webinar list. So it'll show up at the top here once it's ready to be added. So you can kind of just check back every so often. It takes a couple of days to get it added here, but this is where our webinars, past webinars, will appear. All right. Well, I'm out of breath. That's all I got for you today. I mean, if you have any last minute questions, please let me know. But I would be more than happy to show anything further if you have questions. If there's any kind of comments or feedbacks of what you think worked or didn't work with today's webinar, I'd love to hear it. Because I know deliverables is a big topic. There's so much to cover. There's so many ins and outs and different ways to set it up that sometimes it's a mouthful to just talk about. So love to hear how you all are using it. I love hearing the example of the 200 deliverables in a project. I think that's awesome. That's kind of like how I know we've kind of designed it to work in some ways. So yeah, definitely let us know if you have any other feedback or questions, but definitely talk with your account manager if you want to get more of these options set up, or you want to test some things out. Definitely get in touch with them. That's just simply shooting an email to support@workamajig.com. So okay, well, I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you for joining me, and I hope everybody has a great rest of your day. All right, take care.